All right, so we're going to talk about page 71 through 74 in your guided workbook. So what they're doing with this section is they're talking about how to figure out growth factors if you are talking about over a period of time. So the example that they have here, it says, imagine a town with a population of 900 that grows by 30% in year 1 and then 72% in the next year. What's their average percentage change over the 2 years? So an inclination is to take the two percentages and find the average, divide by 2 and get 51%. But that's not correct, because you have to remember that when you took the 900 people and you grew by 30%, then when the next year grows by 72%, it's of the higher value. So you have to do it a little bit differently. So the correct way to do this would be to take the 900 and multiply by the 1.30, so 30% with the growth factor would be 1 plus the rate, so it would be 1 plus 30%, and that's where we get 1.30. And then 1.72 for the 72% for the next year. And we get the amount, or the average percentage change, where we get the number is 2012 for the 2 years. That's the amount of change. So we have two options for how we can proceed from here. So remember, the question is asking you what's the average percentage change over the 2 years. So option number 1 is I can take the two percentages that I had, the 30% and the 72%, and I can multiply them together and take the square root, since it was 2 years. If it was 3 years, I would take the cubed root. In 4 years, I would take the fourth root. So I multiply those two numbers together and then take the square root of it on my calculator, and I get 1.495. which is 49.5%. Okay, now the reason we get the 49 and we drop the 1 is because we have to subtract this 1 from both sides. So we actually get R equals 0.495, which is 49.5. So option number 2 is to take the answer that we got, the 2012, and divide it by the original, which was 900, and take the square root of it again, because it's squared, it's 2 years, and I get, again, 1.49, and then subtracting the 1, I get 49.5%. So we have two different formulas that we can look at here. The first one here has the different rates being multiplied together, and depending on how many rates I multiply would tell me what root I need to raise it to. We'll talk about how to do that. Or the other option is to take the new value divided by the original value and take the root depending on how many years are involved. So let's look at some examples. So a mutual fund increases 8% in the first year and then loses 5% in the next year and then goes up 12.3% the following year. So what's the average percentage of change? So 8% the first year, loses 5.2% the next year, and then gains 12.3% the next year. So I have 1.08, 0.948, because that's going to be 1 minus 0.052. That's how I got the 0.948. And then 1.123. If I multiply all those numbers together, I get 1.14977,232. Try not to round this number off, because when you put it into my math lab, it has a tendency to give you errors if you round it off too much. So I need to take the cube root, because there were 3 different years. I have to have a power of 3, or a root of 3. So how do I do the cubed root on my calculator? So the cubed root I use by raising to the 1/3 power. So I'm going to take this and raise it to the 1/3. So in my calculator, I'm going to take the 1.14977,232, and I'm going to raise it. I'm going to use that caret button again. That's that button right there. Raise it to the parentheses 1 divided by 3 power. And that's how I ended up with the 1.0476. And then we subtract 1, just like we did earlier, and we end up with 4.76%. Okay, so here's another example. A town grows from 12,456 people to 32,980 people. So we're not talking about percentages this time. In a 5-year period of time, what's the average total change? This is not asking for rate. Total change. So I take the new minus the old and divide by 5, and I get 4,104.8 people per year. Okay, so now if I want to know the average percentage of change, I'm going to take the new value divided by the old value, and I'm going to take the 5th root of it. So I'm going to have the 5th root of this decimal. That's what I get when I divide those two things. So again, I'm going to do that decimal raised to the 1/5 power, and I get 1.215, which is 21.5% per year. Okay, so here's another example. This is it's called an exponential puzzler. And I think we'll stop here, and I'll do another video for that one. So this stopped on page 72.